Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about episode 4, 5, and 6 of $1 Million Secret. Now, if you haven't watched my first video talking about the first 3 episodes of $1 Million Secret, you will be completely lost. This really is a review and recap for the people that have been watching the show. If not, at least watch the first episode so you can vaguely keep up, because I'm pretty limited on clips I can use because Netflix's copyright system is kind of cooked. So I'm going to do my best to insert clips here and there occasionally, but we're just going to talk through the most interesting moments of what I think is Netflix's greatest reality show. I genuinely think this is so well paced, so interesting. I've seen a lot of people being like, this is exactly like The Trust or The Mole. Kind of disagree. I think the pacing is really tight. I think the challenges are really good. I think the actor they have being like the main guy, the presenter, is awesome. And I think as a result, this show just fucking moves. There's not a dull part about it. You know what I mean? The voting section is exciting. The challenges are exciting. And watching them have these secret agendas are also very exciting sequences. So let's just get into it. Episode 4. And his agenda is that he has to get, I think it was 2 people, to scream. This was outrageous. This was tough. I was sitting there being like, I just wouldn't do it. I just don't think it's worth it. But if I remember correctly, his whole thing was if he didn't do the task, he was at a disadvantage. So he's obviously driven to do it. Now, next we have the whole whiskey and ice challenge. Now, I want to give credit to Kyle here. So there's this section where they have to, in order to get like a clue, they have to win this challenge where they get whiskey and then they get some ice. And they're doing the whiskey, right? And Kyle has the bright idea. It's with a dripper. Kyle has the bright idea to like suck on the open valve or something to get a fuck ton more whiskey, right? It's literally like coming out this much, and Kyle has this big brain idea and it's this much. Man, I wouldn't have thought of this. So smart moment from Kyle, like mad credit. So at some point, Phil chips his tooth or something, and he's trying to figure out like how to get this whole screaming thing. So he starts being like, man, I'm just so sad about my tooth being chipped. Man, I just want to scream. And I was like, dude, you are outing yourself so hard. Like, I was sitting there as an audience member being like, this is so transparent. This feels so unnatural. Like, my tooth is chipped. The competition's getting to me. I just want to scream. Grr. But somehow I thought it actually seemingly goes well for him. A bunch of people are like, you want to scream? I'll scream with you, man. I'm really annoyed too. Like, let's go out and scream. And this wasn't like a trap from the other contestants. Like,
Scream. Scream?
You want to go out on the walk right there. Let's go.
Sam and Chris both seemed really keen on screaming with Phil. So I guess Phil pulled it off, even though it felt unnatural to me. Everyone else like ate it up. And I love the moment that they scream, because to them it felt really natural. But there's this group of people that are like, that's the agenda for sure. That is the agenda.
What was that? Maybe that's an agenda item.
Next, we have the highlight of this batch of episodes. It's Chris being a super simp for Sydney. Now, the nice change about this reality show is that there was no kind of like dating aspect to it, but no, because Chris is super simping for Sydney. This is rough, all right? There's this conversation they have by the pool where Sydney's in like her bikini and he's sitting there with his dad bod being like, yo, like, oh, you're just like, you're not like other girls. Like, you know, you're obviously like gorgeous, but like unlike other gorgeous girls, you've got brains too. Just like, it was such a rough watch. Like, he was balls deep in the friend zone, and she knew exactly what she was doing. Sorry, like she's talking to the camera being like, yeah, so I'm going to use that to my advantage because Chris is just obsessed with me. This was a rough watch.
And glances, but like, you know what, also like you're smart, and like I just gravitate towards smart people always. Like, obviously you're gorgeous, but I've met hot girls basically. Like, you're different.
Like Chris Deadass says, for some reason we're communicating on an unspoken level. You're smart and I gravitated towards smart people. Obviously you're gorgeous. I've met smart girls before and you're different. Sometimes I feel like a contest winner sitting next to Sydney. And then he goes, I'm going to do what I can to keep you in the house. I just want to keep you in the house. It's like, bruh. And then Sydney obviously plays into this and she's like, when you see my outfit tonight, wow, you know, your jar is going to be on the floor. And then Chris is like, yeah, and wait, I've got a pretty good outfit too. Wait till you see me. I'm like, do you, Chris? Like, I thought this was so funny. Now, I'm going to push back on the show slightly. I think previously there was a really good balance between giving the millionaires an agenda that exposed them enough, but there was a bit of leeway for them to be sneaky and subtle. I think the hint that they gave fucked Phil over completely. I think it was too obvious of a hint. This was outrageous. So the hint is like his secret agenda was the title of a horror film. All right. So Phil had to get people to scream and Scream is a famous horror franchise that recently had 2 big installments. I thought this hint was way too much. Phil was fucked from here. Like, genuinely fucked. And I think the only strategy he possibly could have had was to sit there and throw out a bunch of horror movie names that could have been good alternatives to Scream. But there aren't that many. There aren't that many. Like, genuinely, like, Omen wasn't that compelling. Like, Scream is a doing word, you know? Scream is a thing you can do. Like, there aren't too many, you know? Like, you're not going to say Hereditary, Midsommar, Omen. Like, also, I love the moment where Chris is like, I'm a massive movie buff. And then people are like, what's the one in the hockey mask? And Chris is like, yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street. Dude, what are you doing? But it gets interesting because everyone basically figures out it's Phil, right? It's clear as day that it's Phil. People put together the Scream thing. Now, I will say, I felt like Sam was the one that initiated the Scream. I thought he might have been able to get away with that, and he does go down that route. But everyone's like, okay, it's Phil. Where it gets interesting, though, is people are like, well, we know who the millionaire is. Why don't we keep him the millionaire for as long as we can, not knowing that he can, I guess, has the ability to swap the millionaire around. But regardless, a really interesting narrative forms where they're like, maybe we get rid of Sydney just because she's a dangerous player. You know, maybe we just get rid of her. We start picking off dangerous players and keep Phil the millionaire. And I thought this was interesting as fuck. And then, of course, Super Simp Chris goes, nah, guys, I'm sick of seeing an empty box. I want to get Phil out. And I'm like, your logic just doesn't work here, Chris. Like, I actually think the smart idea was to get rid of a dangerous player like Sydney and keep Phil the millionaire. Chris's logic came down to, I'm sick of seeing empty boxes. And I feel like there's another box he's sick of seeing empty. Anyways, episode 5 starts. Phil is out, obviously. And Phil starts crying. I don't spare me. You know what I mean? Like, I think he did play a really good game. And it would be disappointing to leave. But like, let's get moving. You know what I mean? I don't have time for tears. Sam gets the money. So Sam is the one that was lying about her profession, lying about being a cop. She gets the money, and her challenge, I thought, was pretty easy, actually. She had to get 3 people to kind of, you know, she had to ask 3 people, do you hear that ringing? Do you hear that ringing sound? Now, the hard part of the challenge was you needed at least one person to agree. I love her line of thinking where she goes, well, Lydia's old, so I'm just going to give it a go and see if she kind of thinks there's a ringing. Like, she might already have a ringing in her ear. Hilarious. But where this gets wild, where this gets crazy, all right, is they're doing this challenge where they have to, like, shoot someone in disguise in, like, an animal mask. And Sam goes, oh, now's my opportunity. And I thought this was a dumb as fuck idea. All right. For some reason, a catchphrase I've never heard, she goes, do you hear that ring? When they like hit the mask, right? So as like a victory cry, she starts going, do you hear that ring? Woo! And I was like, this is not going to work. And Jamie Deadass goes, yeah, I hear that ring. And she's done it. It was miraculous. I was genuinely like incredibly impressed.
Let's go,
Yes! I hear that ring.
my man locked it in, Franklin.
Anyways, then we get another smart move. So Jamie gets the intel that the millionaire is lying about their profession. So Jamie scurries back to the group and she goes, hey, everyone, what are your professions and what's your favorite thing about it? To try catch out someone's response who feels unnatural. And then only after she's gotten everyone's answer, she goes, all right, so here's the clue. It's the fact that someone's lying about their profession. I thought that was such a good way to handle it because you get an honest answer, an earnest answer, and those that aren't are going to stick out like a sore thumb. Just smart move by Jamie. Sydney owns up to lying about her profession initially, and everyone kind of roasts her for this, and they're like, what a dumb move. Like, oh, this is so, she's clearly the millionaire, and if she's not, this was just so stupid. It incriminates her. I kind of disagree. All right. Like, yeah, like she had a smart move at the start and she changed her mind about it because it's clearly not serving her. And I think coming forward about it was the right thing to do, was the smart thing to do. I don't think it was that dumb given the circumstances personally. Then it gets really interesting, right? Because the table is ganging up on Sydney and getting ready to send Sydney home. And at this point, everyone in the group knows that the millionaire has earned their agenda. They completed their agenda, so they have a kill shot where their vote is the one to get rid of someone. So on surface, Sam should vote for Sydney or someone else. But Sam goes, I'm going to vote for whoever Sydney said she wants out. So then it looks like the millionaire is definitely Sydney. This was just such a smart move because it gives Sam another week, right? So Sam is in the clear. instead of getting rid of Sydney, she gets rid of the person Sydney thought it was, and that buys her another week. Such a smart move. And I love all the scheming here because at the same time, Chris has to lie about who he voted for last. You know, Chris is lying about where he thinks the money is. Chris knows it's with Sam, but he's lying about who he voted for. It's just so interesting, and the beef and conflict that starts up because Chris says he voted for Sydney when he did actually vote for Sam. It's just so good. It's such good reality TV, guys. Then you have this insane moment where Chris the super simp is like crying on Sydney's behalf and starts holding her hand. Just insane. And I love that Sydney is right about the idea that Lydia is actually lying about her job. Like, Sydney is switched on. She is a smart player. And yeah, so Sam sends Lydia home. A very smart move. Chris says he voted for Sydney, which obviously shoots his like pursuit of her sexually completely in the face. But he does this because he doesn't want to give away that he knows the millionaire is Sam. So he says he voted for Sydney. So there's just so much interesting scheming going on at this point. It's just a perfect reality show in my opinion. And then Jamie is honest and says she voted for Lydia, putting a target on her back. Again, I feel like I know there's this whole angle of like maybe it's reverse psychology because the millionaire would never admit that they did the thing we think the millionaire did. So therefore they think that we won't think they're the millionaire when they are the millionaire. But this is the second time where I'm like, I don't like, clearly it's not Jamie. The same way clearly it's not Sydney. You know, like I know we're sitting here with omnipotent knowledge compared to these contestants, but I was like, I don't know, like maybe take all things into consideration before jumping on Jamie. So episode 6, the task for Sam is to get 3 people to say Justin Timberlake in conversation. I thought this one was like kind of all right. I think this one was okay. And she can't use lyrics or song titles. Now, people forget that Justin Timberlake is also an actor. So I think that could have been a good angle she could have gone down. I think he was in Social Network, right? So if Chris is a movie buff, anyway, whatever. So regardless, she goes for it. Her go-to move is like, oh, who's the guy that was with Jessica Biel? Good stuff. Good stuff. So Sydney is upset with Chris, and Sydney thinks that Chris is the millionaire because he went from like, you know, being really into her to saying he voted for her. This is a lie that he needs to hold down now, or he's fucked either way. Very interesting. Chris then talks to the camera and says that, you know, scary Sydney is hot Sydney. Anyways, by the end of the episode, the entire team is suspecting Jamie because of the fact that she said she voted for Lydia, not accounting for the fact that there could have been 2 people. So then Corey confirms this when they win the challenge with the licking of the plates, and Corey finds out that, yeah, it actually isn't Jamie. And then in a diabolically smart move, right, Chris is also given the opportunity for an agenda, right, where he needs to get people to say 911, misdemeanor, and handcuffs in a conversation. So he lies to the group and just says, hey, part of the hint for who the next millionaire is 911, misdemeanor, and handcuffs. So then people start repeating like, oh, 911, misdemeanor, handcuffs, right? So he wins this agenda instantly. But what's more interesting is now it's set the group off on a wrong course that actually gets them closer to the millionaire. This is where it gets really fascinating, right? Because that's not an actual clue. That isn't an actual clue for them. But they take it as a clue, and Sam is actually lying about being a cop. But also, unfortunately, in a moment of like incredible synchronicity, Chris had actually told a story. His fun fact about him was that he was taken by police escort to some sport game or something. So now there are 2 coincidental things that are like elevated by this bullshit here. It's just so interesting. So now Chris is stressing because he's just told this story about police, and the hint is 911 misdemeanor handcuffs. And this results in Chris essentially being voted off a bullshit hint from Corey. So Corey's probably seen that being like, oh my God, what have I done? There's this insane moment where the host asks Sydney if she's still close with Chris after everything, and Chris starts answering for her. It's like, yeah, we're super close. Like, you know, we got through, and everyone's like, can you let Sydney answer? It's hilarious.
Are you still close with?
Yes. Yeah, we ironed it out. We had a tough moment. I mean, like any personal relationship is going to have tough moments, and you talk them out and you make yourself better for them. And Sydney and I are 2 adults, and we had a conversation and we made it better.
Chris, why don't I let Sydney answer that question?
Chris starts crying because he knows he's fucked. And it would be rough to be Chris, especially knowing that Sam is the millionaire. And he doesn't know this at this point, but he was fucked over by like a fake clue that Corey had to make up to save his own skin. I think this show is just awesome. At this point, there's so many convoluted, interesting lies going on. And then it ends with Chris being booted, but not before he says the weirdest quote of the entire fucking show, where he's like, can you, Sydney feels like she's from a fairy tale. Some bullshit about like Sydney, tell me, where he's like, Sydney seemed like a fairy tale, but tell me a fairy tale where the prince saves the princess, only to be like persecuted by the princess and sent to die by the princess, or whatever he says. I'll play it here, but just hilarious.
I don't know what fairy tales Sydney read growing up, but I must have missed the one where Prince Charming saves the princess from the burning tower and then she gets out and stabs him in the back.
Guys, thank you so much for watching. I'm only doing this recap because like 5 people were like, do another video on $1 Million Secret. So here you go. I hope this was funny and entertaining. If you want me to cover the last 2 episodes, please let me know. I'll try and include clips. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider getting a membership to the... If you've enjoyed this video, please consider getting a membership to this channel. I'm covering every episode of White Lotus as it comes out. I also do a podcast talk about everything I've watched in a given month, both movies and TV shows. On top of that, White Lotus is nearly over, so we will be trying to figure out what we talk about next on the membership part of this channel. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, like, and comment, and have a lovely day. Thank you.